Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we aren't just reading a book. We are wading into an atmosphere.
Mm.
You know those stories where the setting is so oppressive it feels like a character in itself?
Oh, absolutely.
That is exactly where we are heading. We're
Right.
talking about a world of perpetual gray mist, constant rain, rotting vegetation, and the kind of humidity that makes you feel like you're drowning even when you're standing on solid ground.
It creates a very specific kind of claustrophobia.
Mm-hmm.
We are analyzing Doctor Who and the Power of Kroll by Terrance Dicks.
Right.
And while it's a science fiction adventure on the surface, beneath that it is a surprisingly grim study of colonialism, religious manipulation, and the consequences of industrial greed.
It's a dense text in terms of themes,
Yeah.
and I want to set the scene right away because Terrance Dicks does this masterfully in the first few chapters. We are on Delta 3.
Right.
It's a moon, but it's essentially one giant treacherous swamp. It's not a tropical paradise. It's a wet, miserable slog.
Exactly. The source text describes lagoons the size of seas, filled with sludge and driftweed. The air is heavy. And planted right in the middle of this, Neolithic nightmare is the refinery. It's a gleaming, metallic tower of advanced technology.
That visual contrast is everything, isn't it?
It really is.
You have the primitive, chaotic swamp and then this sterile steel needle trying to impose order on it.
Yeah.
Brings us to the core mission of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We need to explore that collision. It's not just nature versus technology. It is industrial colonialism represented by the refinery crew, crashing into indigenous belief represented by the Swampies, the green-skinned natives.
And caught in the crossfire is Kroll,
Mm-hmm.
the monster.
No.
But as we'll see, defining who the actual monster is in this story is a bit complicated.
Right. And for context, our protagonists, the Doctor and Romana, they just drop into this mess looking for a piece of the key to time. But before we get to the cosmic treasure hunt, we have to understand the geopolitical setup because it feels uncomfortably real. We have Thawne, the commander of the refinery, and he isn't just drilling for oil, he's harvesting protein.
It's a matter of survival for his people. The mother planet, Delta Magna, is an industrial wasteland. It's overcrowded, polluted, and starving.
So he's on this moon to do what exactly?
He's dredging up sediment from the lagoon, which is rich in organic material, and compressing it into food.
So on paper, Thawne is a hero.
You think so?
He's feeding millions of starving people back home. But when you look at how he treats the locals on Delta 3, that heroism falls apart pretty fast.
Oh, he disintegrates.
The book is explicit about the history here. The Swampies didn't just appear on the moon, they were deported.
They were the original inhabitants of the mother planet, Delta Magna. When the human colonists arrived, they pushed the natives out. They shipped them off to this inhospitable swamp moon with a promise.
A broken promise.
A very broken promise. They said, this is yours now. We won't bother you here.
Terrance Dicks uses a really sharp analogy in the text, doesn't he?
He does. It's very direct.
He compares them directly to the Red Indians of Earth, his words being moved to reservations. It's a clear critique of historical displacement.
Absolutely. The deal was land for peace, but the moment Thawne found something valuable in the swamp, the protein, the deal was off.
Suddenly their land wasn't their land anymore.
Precisely. Thawne views the Swampies not as a sovereign people, but as an obstacle to efficiency. He calls them savages. His worldview is entirely utilitarian. If the Swampies are in the way of feeding the civilized world, then the Swampies have to go.
And the tension is palpable because back home there's a group called the Sons of Earth who are protesting this.
Right. They're a pressure group.
They are basically a human rights organization trying to stop Thawne from bulldozing the natives. So Thawne is under scrutiny. He can't just wipe them out.
Or at least he can't be seen doing it without a reason.
Exactly.
Which leads us to the first major plot point, and honestly, one of the darkest schemes in the book. This is part 1. The politics of hate.
This is where the character Rome Dutt comes in. When we first meet him, he's a caricature of a revolutionary.
He really is.
He's wearing the bush hat, the bandoliers, the sweaty shirt. He lands in the swamp claiming to be a gun runner for the Sons of Earth, bringing weapons to the Swampies so they can fight back.
He presents himself as their savior. He's offering them the means to defend their land against the refinery. The Swampies, led by their war chief Varlic, are naturally suspicious, but they're desperate enough to accept the help.
But the text pulls the rug out from under us.
Oh, it's a huge twist.
Rome Dutt isn't a freedom fighter. He's on Thawne's payroll.
It's a false flag operation. Thawne hired him to smuggle the weapons?
And this is what I found so chilling. Thawne isn't arming them because he wants a fair fight.
No, not at all.
He's arming them because he needs a legal loophole.
Exactly. If the Swampies are just peaceful people with spears, Thawne cannot justify using heavy weaponry against them. It would look like a massacre to the politicians back home.
What?
But if the Swampies have blasters, if they launch an armed assault on the refinery,
Then it's self-defense. Thawne can wipe them out, claim he was protecting his crew, and the government on Delta Magna will probably give him a medal.
he's manufacturing a war just so he can win it.
It's just pure Machiavellian evil.
And the cruelty is in the details. The book spends time describing the weapons Rome delivers. Varlic, the Swampy war chief, inspects them and realizes immediately that they are garbage.
They aren't just second-hand, they're death traps.
They are. The text mentions rusted barrels, filed-down firing pins, and defective power packs. These guns were never meant to fire effectively. They were props.
Wow.
Thawne gave them just enough rope to hang themselves, but not enough to actually threaten the refinery.
Yeah.
It's a suicide pact disguised as aid.
It really defines Thawne's character. He's described as this big, menacing figure, but it's his mind that's scary. He sees human beings as variables in an equation, and you contrast him with his crew people like Fenner, who is just doing a job, and Degene.
Degene is fascinating.
He is. Degene is the moral compass that points north, while Thawne points to profit.
Degene is the tragedy of the story. He's young, he's a skilled technician, but he's also politically aware. He sympathizes with the Sons of Earth.
He has a conscience.
He does. He looks at the Swampies and sees a culture, a civilization. Thawne looks at them and sees vermin. That friction in the control room is constant.
So Thawne is winding up the clock for a genocide, but across the lagoon, the Swampies have their own problems. And this brings us to part 2, the theology of fear.
Right.
Because their society isn't exactly a utopia either.
No, it's a theocracy driven by fear. You have Rankin, the chief, and Skart, the high priest. They hold absolute power, and they maintain that power through the worship of Kroll.
The giant squid god. Now, at the start of the book, Kroll is treated as a myth. And the priests are actually faking Kroll's appearances to keep the population in line, aren't they?
They are. There's a scene where the Doctor and Romana are captured and tied up to be sacrificed. The monster rises from the pit.
But the Doctor notices something is off.
He does. He manages to free a hand and hits the monster with a gong striker.
And the monster goes, ouch!
Precisely. It's Skart in a costume with a mechanical claw. It's a Scooby-Doo reveal, but with much higher stakes.
So it's all show.
Rankin admits it's a political tool. The people need a god to fear, effectively. It creates social cohesion.
But here's the twist. Just because the priests are faking it doesn't mean their cruelty is fake.
No, not at all.
Because when the fake sacrifice fails, they decide they need to up the ante. They need to wake the real Kroll to destroy the refinery. And to do that, they subject the Doctor, Romana, and the traitor Romda to the 7th holy ritual.
This is one of the most gruesome concepts Terrance Dicks ever wrote. It's an execution method that turns the environment of Delta 3 into a torture device.
It's terrifyingly ingenious. They tie the victims to a rack, but they don't use ropes.
Well,
They use these specific swamp creepers vines that grow in the lagoon. When they tie them on, the vines are soaking wet.
and the biology of these creepers is that they're hyperabsorbent. When they are wet, they are loose and pliable. But the execution is timed for sunrise.
Delta 3 has twin suns.
Right. When the suns break through the mist, the heat hits the rack
And the creepers dry out.
rapidly. As they lose moisture, they shrink. It's not just a tightening, it's a hydraulic contraction.
Oh, that's awful.
The text describes it as a slow, agonizing stretching of the joints. The victims are literally pulled apart by the evaporation of water.
It transforms the sunrise, which is usually a symbol of hope or a new day, into a countdown to a brutal death.
It shows that the swampy culture has developed a deep, ritualistic relationship with the pain their environment can inflict.
But as always, the Doctor uses that environment against them.
He realizes that the execution relies entirely on sound physics.
He uses his voice. He mimics Dame Nellie Melba, a famous opera singer, and hits a sonic frequency that shatters a glass window above the altar.
Which lets the rain in. And on Delta 3, it's always raining just above the canopy.
Of course it is.
The water rushes in, hits the dry creepers, and instantly rehydrates them. They expand, the bonds loosen, and the prisoners slip free.
It's a brilliant escape because it feels earned by the setting. The rain is the dominant force on the planet, and it saves them. But while they are escaping the temple, something else is happening in the deep lagoon. We've had the fake monster. Now we get part 3, the monster rises.
This is where the biological reality crashes into the myth. Kroll is real.
And it's not happy.
But it isn't a god. The Doctor deduces that Kroll is essentially a biological accident.
This connects back to the key to time, right? The symbol of power the Swampies talk about.
Yes. Centuries ago, a giant squid, just a normal, local animal, swallowed the fifth segment of the key to time. Now, this is a chunk of pure cosmic order and power.
So what happens when a squid eats a battery of infinite power?
It breaks the laws of biology. The energy from the key segment caused unchecked cellular mutation. It stopped the creature from aging and locked its cells into a state of perpetual growth.
So it's immortal and always getting bigger.
It's effectively a miles-wide tumor.
That's a disturbing way to frame it. It's not evil, it's cancer on a macro scale.
Exactly. It's in pain, it's confused, and it's eternally hungry. It's been dormant for centuries, sleeping in the mud, absorbing nutrients passively. But then, the refinery arrived.
And here is the great irony of the book. Thawne's pursuit of protein is what woke the protein eater.
It's a thermodynamic tragedy. The refinery uses massive heat exchangers to process the swamp muck. They are pumping waste heat directly into the lagoon.
So they're warming up the water.
That heat warmed up the surrounding water, increasing the metabolic rate of the giant squid.
Plus the vibrations.
The constant thumping of the pumps.
Kroll is a deep-sea creature. It lives in the dark. It's blind. It hunts entirely by sensing vibration.
So the refinery has been effectively ringing a dinner bell for months.
For months. Yeah.
When Kroll finally attacks, the book shifts into full horror mode. And because Kroll hunts by vibration, movement equals death. There's that scene with Romana in the swamp.
It's a classic example of panic being fatal. The ground starts bubbling, the mud is churning, the Doctor screams at everyone to freeze.
Don't move a muscle! But Romana, his nerve just breaks.
He
He
runs.
splashes through the water. And that movement gives Kroll a target. A tentacle, which the book describes as thick as a tree trunk, just whips out of the mist and snatches him.
And he's just gone.
He's gone.
And then there's the death of Harg, one of the refinery crew. This one really stuck with me because it shows the reach of the monster.
Right.
Harg is inside the refinery, in the pump room. He thinks he's safe behind steel walls.
But Kroll attacks the infrastructure. A tentacle smashes through a reinforced pipe and sucks Harg out like a vacuum. It reinforces the idea that the refinery isn't a fortress, it's just a fragile metal shell sitting in the monster's domain.
Kroll doesn't care whose side you're on either.
No allegiance whatsoever.
It attacks the swampy settlement with just as much ferocity.
It completely shatters Rankin's theology. He's spent his life telling his people that Kroll is their protector. Now, the protector is crushing their huts and eating their families.
It's just a hungry animal.
It proves that nature, especially mutated nature, doesn't have a political allegiance.
So the monster is awake, the Swampies are scattered, the refinery is under siege, and Thawne, watching his profit margins disappear, decides to do the unthinkable.
He does.
This leads us to part 4, the moral event horizon.
This is the pivotal moment for Thawne. He realizes that the thing in the lake is the problem. He has a cargo rocket on the launch pad loaded with protein, ready to go to orbit.
But he reprograms it. He targets it not at space, but at the swampy settlement.
He knows the vibration of the launch and the impact will draw Kroll there. But the warhead will vaporize everything within miles.
So he's going to nuke them.
He explicitly plans to nuke the indigenous population to kill the pest that's bothering his rig. He calls it killing two birds with one stone.
And this is where Dugin steps up. We mentioned earlier that Dugin is the moral center of the crew.
He is.
He looks at the coordinates and realizes what Thawne is doing.
Dugin tries to physically stop the launch. He pleads with Thawne. He says, "You can't do this. You'll be destroying a civilization that's older than our own."
He appeals to history, to humanity.
He does.
And Thawne's reaction is just cold.
He doesn't argue. He doesn't hesitate. He pulls a blaster and shoots Dugin in the chest.
That moment changes everything. Up until then, you could argue Thawne was just a ruthless businessman.
Yeah, a really bad one.
But killing his own crewman, a kid he's worked with side by side.
It marks his transition from capitalist to monster. It proves that fascism inevitably eats its own. First, Thawne dehumanized the Swampies. Once he crossed that line, it was a short step to dehumanizing anyone who stood in his way, even his own radar operator.
And he just steps over Dugin's body.
and goes back to the launch controls.
Fortunately, the Doctor is already 2 steps ahead. He's actually inside the rocket silo.
Right.
He uses his sonic screwdriver to smash the guidance circuits just as the countdown hits 0.
The rocket doesn't launch. Thawne is left with a broken weapon, a dead colleague, and a monster that is getting closer by the second.
Which brings us to part 5, the siege. Kroll decides it's done with appetizers and comes for the main course.
The
refinery. The description of the attack emphasizes the sheer scale.
Kroll is so large it blots out the horizon. It wraps its tentacles around the rig's legs and starts to crush it. The structural integrity is failing.
The Doctor realizes they can't shoot it. It's too big. Bullets would be like mosquito bites.
Useless.
So he goes back to the biology. Kroll is blind. Kroll senses vibration.
The Doctor's plan is sensory overload. He tells Fenner, who's the only surviving crew member at this point, to turn on everything.
Every pump, every centrifuge.
Every siren. Create a wall of noise to confuse the creature.
It's total chaos. The rig is shaking, alarms are blaring, and in the middle of this nightmare, Rankin shows up.
Right.
He's led the surviving Swampies into the refinery to hide. But even now, with the roof collapsing, he refuses to let go of his delusion.
It's the death of the fanatic. A tentacle smashes into the control room. Rankin doesn't run. He steps forward.
He starts praying.
He raises his arms and starts praying to it. He truly believes that his faith will make him immune to the biological reality of the creature.
It's a powerful image, the man shouting dogmas at a giant squid.
Kroll just eats him. It's not malicious, it's just feeding. But narratively, it's poetic justice. Rankin is consumed by the very monster he used to terrorize his people.
And then almost immediately we get Thawne's death. Thawne has completely snapped. He sees the Doctor and blames him for the rocket failing. He raises his gun to kill the Doctor.
And Varlik acts. Varlik, the swampy war chief who realized the guns were rusty, who realized the god was fake.
The pragmatist.
He throws a spear and kills Thawne.
I love the symmetry there. You have the two leaders, Rankin and Thawne. One represents religious fanaticism, the other represents industrial greed. Both of them die because they couldn't adapt. Rankin couldn't stop believing, and Thawne couldn't stop taking.
And they are both removed by the people they tried to exploit.
So the villains are dead. But the rig is still crumbling. The Doctor realizes there is only one way to stop Kroll. He has to perform surgery.
He grabs the tracer, the wand-like device that detects the key to time. He realizes that the key segment is the only thing holding Kroll's massive, impossible body together.
The power source.
If he removes the power source, the biology should collapse.
He runs out onto the gantry right in front of the beast. It's a suicide run. He points the tracer at the creature.
And he extracts the segment. He pulls the cosmic energy out of the biological tissue.
And the result is wild. The monster doesn't explode, it disperses.
It vanishes. And in its place, raining down on the deck, are hundreds of normal-sized, tiny squids.
I think that image is the perfect metaphor for the whole story.
I agree.
The god, the monster, was just a collection of small, harmless things inflated by an artificial power source.
Exactly. Once you remove the power, the terror evaporates. It returns to a natural, manageable state.
So the monster is gone, the rig is silent. Let's look at the aftermath in part 6, because it's not exactly a happy ever after ending.
No, it's a sober ending. With the key segment gone, the miracle of Delta 3 is over. Kroll was the source of the unique radiation that made the lake sediment so rich in protein.
So the protein is gone.
Without Kroll, the sediment is just mud.
So the refinery is useless. Thawne died for nothing. Dugin died for nothing.
Economically, yes. The project is a bust. Fenner's left in charge, and the Doctor advises him to stay.
Not as a conqueror.
Not as a commander, but as a helper. He suggests Fenner use his knowledge to help the Swampies rebuild, effectively turning the refinery from a factory into a hospital or a school.
It's a call for reparations, essentially.
It is. And Varlik, who is now the de facto leader of his people, accepts the situation. He tells Fenner, you can have Delta 3 back now.
But with irony.
With a lot of irony. They're taking back a world that has been scarred, but it is theirs again. They move forward without the false religion of Kroll and without the oppression of Thawne.
So let's zoom out and unpack the final takeaways here. What is the big lesson from the swamps of Delta 3?
I think the most compelling insight is about the nature of the monster. We spend the whole book fearing Kroll. But Kroll was arguably the most innocent character in this story.
Right. It was an animal. It didn't have malice. It just had hunger and pain.
The real monsters were the humans and the Swampies who tried to weaponize the situation. Thawne used the threat of the Swampies to justify a massacre. Rankin used the threat of Kroll to justify his tyranny. The story tells us that the monsters inside us, greed, fanaticism, xenophobia, are far more dangerous than any giant squid.
And we have to talk about the colonialism theme again. It's the spine of the narrative.
It is. The story shows that you cannot simply displace a people and expect peace. Thawne's mistake was assuming that because the Swampies were primitive technically, they were simple strategically. He underestimated them. He pushed them into a corner until they had no choice but to fight back.
It's a cycle of violence. The oppression creates the resistance, which the oppressor uses to justify more oppression.
And eventually, the whole rig collapses.
Yeah.
And it suggests that progress, capital P progress, is a dangerous ideology when it ignores the local context. Thawne thought he could just pave over Delta 3 and extract what he wanted. The planet fought back.
I want to end on that resolution with the key segment. The idea that this terrifying, miles-wide god was only held together by a single, tiny crystal.
It raises a provocative question for us to chew on. In the story, the monster fell apart the moment its source of absolute power was removed. It asks us to consider what other terrifying monsters in our world, whether they are political systems, social injustices, or even our own personal anxieties, are only held together by a single, removable source of power.
Like, if you pull the funding or the belief or the fear, does the monster just dissolve into tiny, harmless squids?
It's a hopeful thought. It suggests that the things that seem insurmountable might actually be fragile if you could just identify the one thing keeping them inflated.
That is definitely something to mull over. We will leave you with that thought. Thanks for diving deep into the murk with us.
Always a pleasure.
He's in the next deep dive.